Well, welcome to the Get Fit with Jodelle podcast. I am, as usual, Jodelle. And wow, you guys are going to be blown away by this guest that I'm honored to have on today, who is going to teach you all the ins and outs of the latest and greatest supplements, life hacks, and everything else in between. So Owen is a thriving naturopath out of Melbourne, Australia, with a passion for researching the latest and cutting edge science behind biohacking our biology, and has literally hundreds of videos and podcasts on his Boost Your Biology channel, which I am always happy to watch. And his company, Ergogenic Health, has been helping quite a few people as well. So he's doing the grunt work for us of uncovering the most beneficial and well-researched supplements, nootropics, lifestyle hacks, and so on, so that you don't have to do the grunt work. And he's joining me today to fill us in on all the most essential and effective things that are hitting the market and may not have even hit the market yet, or are just simple things you can do with your health to boost your own biology. So if you're eating well and you're taking care of your body by moving daily and you're dialing in your circadian rhythm, that's good. But if you're ready for even more results, listen in, because you're about to get a little smarter on all things health and biology right now, and things pertaining to fat loss and circadian rhythm and sleep, all of these things I love to talk about on my podcast. So Lucas, so honored to have you join me today. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me on the show, Jodelle. I've been watching your podcast and really respect what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. I as you do, I'm sure, enjoy putting good education out for people who are searching for ways to optimize their health. So I'm going to dive right in, because I've put together a list of just some random fun subjects that I want to chat with you about today, pertaining to, what's going on with everybody's health, sleep issues and fat loss issues, and ways to boost their energy, ways to boost their testosterone, their libido, and all things that I'm seeing in my practice are big issues. I'm sure you're seeing it as well. And just some lifestyle hacks that are needle movers that listeners may not have heard of until they hear from you today. But tell us briefly what got you into being a supplement junkie like myself, because I can tell we have that in common amongst other things.
Yeah, I actually guess my journey really started out playing professional soccer. And so I was always on the hunt for things that could improve my performance on the soccer field. And then I sort of dived into the whole nootropics space and sort of fell in love with the idea that we could take control of our neurochemistry, our neurotransmitters. And then I just started experimenting and ruthlessly experimenting and researching. And then I sort of came across one that I'm sure you're familiar with, and I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with, is L-theanine. And from the early days, I responded, quite well to L-theanine, particularly for just keeping me calm and relaxed on the soccer field. And then from there, I got really obsessed with that whole nootropic space, and I got involved in a startup. So I had the opportunity to formulate a nootropic stack, and I was actually the first person in Australia to use a particular ingredient, which is now, widely known. That's teacrine. And then from there, I sort of got involved in my dad's pharmacy. My dad's a pharmacist, so I had some experience working there. I was the vitamin expert in the pharmacy. And then from there, I started studying naturopathy, and here we are today. I'm just creating, massive amounts of content for, hopefully millions of people worldwide.
I love it. I love your content too. So what sparked me was when you interviewed on your podcast, Matt Legge of ATP Science, who I just think is the most knowledgeable naturopath on the planet. And if anybody doesn't know ATP Science, I've been pushing their products for a long time, because it's made by a naturopath who is passionate about real ingredients and sourcing them well and stuff. And so when I listened to you guys talk, it was just phenomenal. And so that's a podcast they definitely need to go touch on. But what are your feelings on, some of your favorite products with ATP Science? Do you have some favorites?
Actually, it's funny you mentioned Matt Legge, because when I first met Matt, I I decided that that's the man that I want to become. Like that is truly who I want to become. Like, you know, he's a formulator, he's a naturopath. He knows so much about performance. Like he's very much fixated on like performance optimization. And so I sort of fell in love with like his approach to formulating. And I think one of his best products was something called Gut Right, which was based around mod biotics. So like full of polyphenols, flavonoids, and antiparasitic agents. And that particular product was a standout for me because, you know, a lot of people were looking at, you know, probiotics, prebiotics, but the concept of like mod biotics where they're basically designed to kill off, you know, bad bacteria and promote the growth of good bacteria was, you know, I think that was a game changer supplement for a lot of people struggling with gut issues. I personally responded really well to it. And then a lot of my friends did as well. And so, yeah, Matt's truly a legend.
He is. Yeah. And the gut right. I've seen many clients do really well, actually get their gut right with that product. So it's really well done. And it's one of those things you take it for 10 days. And if you have gut issues, you're going to know it within the 10 days, it's going to clear up. But if you don't, then you don't need it. So it's a really well researched, but all of his stuff is, I can see why you could kind of like have hashtag goals towards a guy like that, because he knows a thing or two. And as a naturopath, it was really neat to see you guys interact together on the podcast. But I heard you also talk on one of your podcasts about something that struck me, because I've felt this way too, looking at clients, is the idea of laziness when it comes to getting results. Like they want a magic bullet. They want a supplement that's going to just put it in my body and it's going to work and do everything. I'm going to turn into this magic human. And there's a side of modern science that has made it easier to get results. So that's some of the supplements we're going to talk about today, is like we do have these modern conveniences of really well-researched products that can help. But we can't forget that there's hard work with regard to achieving a healthier body and brain, right? So, you know, not being the indoor nation, not being the instant gratification nation, what would you say are some of the most essential fundamentals when it comes to getting a better body, outside of the things we're going to talk about today too?
Yeah, I think it comes back to like harnessing the power of increasing the metabolic rate. And I know Dr. Ray Peat talks about it extensively, but I guess my approach here is like, how can we max out all of the thermogenic and lipolytic enzymes and hormones in the body? So for example, if we're going on a like sort of like a fat loss journey, for example, particularly as a man, I'll speak from like a male perspective, because obviously, you know, I talk extensively on the male hormonal side. I know we're going to touch on that shortly, but from like a hormonal perspective, our goals are to, number one, lower prolactin, number two, increase testosterone, number three, increase DHT. And then we also want to be increasing thyroid hormone output, so increasing the total output of T3, or our production of T3, you know, converted from T4. And then also, you know, we want to also be lowering serotonin, because we know that serotonin can put the brakes on, well, first of all, motivation and drive. But then also we know that serotonin can, you know, raise some of the other stress hormones that can actually affect the metabolic rate as well.
Yeah, I love that. So what are some quick tips that you include in your regimen of like how to raise your own metabolic rate?
So over the years, I've really enjoyed using some of the natural like thyroid stimulants. For example, one particular herb that we learned about extensively at naturopathy school was Coleus forskolii, which is also known as forskolin. And that one there is quite good because it does a couple of things together. It does increasing free testosterone and then also increasing thyroid hormone output. And so together, you know, that effect usually yields quite a positive effect when combined with, say, something like caffeine or some other sort of stimulant, particularly for like fasted cardio. And then you can also consider actually adding in one of ATP Science's products, which is the AMP V. Do you remember the AMP V?
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, that's also quite good because it's, you know, like a liquid-based oil blend that can shift the preferred fuel source to fats in the morning. So yeah, really over the years, I've been diving into things like, you know, the thyroid stimulants and then some of the other underground supplements, which, you know, I love to talk about the novel ones. Is one of them is L-Baba. This was actually released by NNB Nutrition, Sean Wells. And L-Baba is, you know, based on the rat studies, they say that it's basically exercise in a pill because it can increase the production of brown fat so dramatically in the body that it can offset, you know, like a high-fat diet induced obesity, high-fat diet induced diabetes. And so L-Baba is definitely a new and novel supplement for general metabolic rate and fat loss.
Yeah, so you dove right into one of my topics I wanted to get to, which is like some cutting edge fat loss tools. And so L-Baba, I had that on my list. I'm so glad you brought that up because I was really interested in that. So along with that, it's like, yeah, we need weight training, we need rest and recovery, we need time away from workouts too, and then we need to dial in our nutrition. But what you're saying is these extra little extras can really push the needle in the right way. So let's go further into fat loss. I know there's another one that I've been interested in but haven't tried. That's that 5-amino-1-MQ. Can you talk about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I was looking forward to this one. So the 5-amino-1-MQ was a compound that I learned about from Ryan Smith from TaylorMade Compounding back in the day. And 5-amino-1-MQ was unique because basically researchers were screening a wide variety of compounds that could inhibit an enzyme known as NNMT, which is nicotinamide and methyltransferase. And so by inhibiting this enzyme, it has like a backdoor entry point to actually raise intracellular NAD levels. I'm sure, again, many of your listeners would know the benefits associating with increasing NAD. You know, it's a powerful, you know, youth substance. It promotes cellular longevity and energy production. And so 5-amino-1-MQ in some of the initial rat studies was shown to dramatically increase lipolysis and also increase the ability to prevent weight gain following like a high fat diet and also offsetting like insulin resistance as well. So yeah, 5-amino-1-MQ is definitely a unique way to like improve total body insulin sensitivity and also energy levels as well. A lot of people notice that their energy levels increase after using 5-amino-1-MQ.
Yeah, and I've only seen one website that showcases it, and I've seen it on yours and I've seen it on peptidesciences.com as well. Have you had a lot of success, like with people you've worked with using it, or you yourself? Have you seen fat loss pretty quickly, or what can people expect with it?
Yeah, so I did actually try a few different forms of the 5-amino-1-MQ. I tried a couple of vendors, two of which I wasn't that particularly impressed with. In fact, I thought they actually weren't 5-amino-1-MQ. It's a very difficult ingredient to actually synthesize. But the Peptide Sciences one, that one there, I've seen some pretty good effects from, particularly with one of my clients who's like, you know, more of like a triathlete, an endurance athlete. He noticed reductions in his like 30-kilometer cycling all-out effort. And also he noticed just general increases in energy, particularly in the afternoon towards the evening. He noticed just feeling more energetic, more vital. And also he noted like a warmer core body temperature. So it wouldn't surprise me. There's no research on this yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if 5-amino-1-MQ would also have some degree of thyroid stimulating effects as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just wondering in terms of people who had like a lot of weight to lose, maybe they have 40 or 50 pounds to lose, because it's a pricey supplement. So it would be something that would benefit them, like as far as weight loss. Have you seen any anecdotal evidence of that?
I would say, I'd say they would benefit greatly. Like if we looked at their blood, if we did a blood panel before and after, let's say 6 to 8 weeks on 5-amino-1-MQ, maybe at a dosage of about 50 to 100 milligrams per day. I haven't seen this yet, but if we looked at their blood test panel, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a reduction in triglycerides, an improvement in HDL cholesterol, perhaps a reduction in fasting insulin, perhaps a reduction in fasting blood sugar levels, and possibly without any exercise. Obviously, I know we've got to do the fundamentals first, but if, say, an obese person did use it by itself with no dietary changes or exercise changes, it wouldn't surprise me if, after doing like a DEXA scan, we saw a reduction in, maybe like visceral fat, for example.
Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, everybody's looking for that magic bullet. So it may be there, but it also may be pricey for them. Now, what about something that is lesser known, but I'm seeing a lot of good research on it, semaglutide? Do you know much about semaglutide? It is a medication, but I'm just wondering your thoughts on it.
Yeah, actually, I'm a big fan of semaglutide. Actually, I got my mum on semaglutide, and I know a lot of other people that have also been using it and seeing some pretty dramatic, fat loss effects. A lot of bodybuilders are using it to like suppress appetite during dieting. But I was actually on the hunt. Of course, like when I see something, I'm like, okay, what's the mechanism of action?
Right.
How can we replicate it? What else is out there that can sort of have the same effect? And I came across a particular flavonoid called myricetin, like MYRICETIN. So like I was basically just on the hunt for like other natural GLP-1 agonists. And the myricetin there were some pretty impressive like rat studies. Again, there were no human studies, but myricetin was impressive because it also displayed that GLP-1 agonism effect. And a lot of the rat studies indicated that it improved various parameters of metabolic health, for example, improving fasting blood sugar, improving postprandial, like reducing postprandial hyperglycemia. And that totally makes sense. And then there's all these other broad spectrum benefits associated with that flavonoid because, again, most of these flavonoids, they do appear to possess like anti-tumor, anti-inflammatory, hepatoprotective, nephroprotective, potentially even anti-neuroinflammatory effects. So that caught my eye when I first saw myricetin. And then as far as like actually sourcing it, there weren't actually many companies selling pure myricetin. I think Source Naturals was selling like a myricetin extract, but it wouldn't be difficult to like manufacture, and it should be fairly cheap as well.
Well, when you find one, let me know, because I love that you research natural products that mimic what some pharmaceuticals are doing out there. I think that's really brilliant.
Yeah, so it's a glucagon. Well, GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide, and basically by acting as a GLP-1 agonist, what that means is that it can delay gastric emptying, and it can also affect particular pathways in the brain associated with satiety and fullness. And so in general, by acting as a GLP-1 agonist, it can dramatically increase a person's sense of like fullness following meals. And it also possesses, broad spectrum neuroprotective qualities. I was looking into how GLP-1 agonists can affect the brain. And it turns out that these GLP-1 agonists also appear to potentially offset beta amyloid plaque accumulation. So that was quite interesting to see the sort of link there as well.
Awesome. Now back to the semaglutide. So have you seen if that has any side effects that people should be aware of, or is it relatively harmless as a part of pharmaceutical?
So as far as like the initial period, a lot of people that, when they first start semaglutide, the appetite suppression effects, and also it does come along with like a bit of nausea. Some people experience like nausea, maybe changes in stool quality. But with the semaglutide, the appetite suppression, from what I've heard, I personally haven't tried it. The appetite suppression effects are so strong that it almost makes you like feel just disgusted by food, even if it's like, a beautiful meal, maybe like a beautiful steak with some rocket. Apparently it makes you feel like disgusted by food.
Wow. Okay, so that's one to put on their list if they're looking to like slow down on their food consumption a little bit. So, okay, so as far as anything else fat loss related, I know on your website, one of the products I saw listed under fat loss, it was like such a long name. I can't even start with it. All I know is it starts with J and has a lot of letters and a lot of numbers. So can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, so that's the JBSNF, and then it's like 000 there's or something like that. But I know it's a difficult one. Well, when they were looking at 5-amino-1-MQ, they were also looking for, as I said, they were screening thousands of compounds, and the JBSNF also appeared to share similar mechanisms and also appear to support 5-amino-1-MQ in terms of improving NAD levels in the body, and also offsetting a lot of the deleterious effects of like I think there was one study where they looked at high fructose corn syrup, which we know, both you and I know, is terrible for health. This JBSNF, I think, offsetted the metabolic perturbations associated with like high fructose corn syrup. So it doesn't mean you can go out and smash high fructose corn syrup, but for those that are, maybe had exposure to that or accidentally consumed it, then, something like JBSNF alongside 5-amino-1-MQ and some other metabolic enhancers could be beneficial in that circumstance.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So this could be good for somebody that's coming off a processed food diet. Maybe they want to change their nutrition and they've also been eating a lot of high fructose corn syrup. It's a fat loss mechanism that also could help kind of detox that out of their system, correct?
Yeah, potentially. I think something like, JBSNF combined with like actual like NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide, I think that combination there would provide someone with like a boost in like general day-to-day energy without sort of acting as a stimulant-based fat loss agent.
Awesome. Okay. So going into NAD then, just as a health optimizer, what form do you love of NAD? I mean, you can get it IV, you can get it orally, you can get it sublingually. What do you like? What do you prefer?
In the past, I responded really well to sublingual Enada. It was a brand called Enada. It was actually NADH. That was perhaps like the most immediate and like particular NAD supplement that I noticed. Like it had a very fast onset, very rapid like energy boosting effect, wakefulness effect, and just gave me like a really good 6 to 8 hours of like clean energy, particularly I use it pre-workout, and I've had a really great workout when I used it sublingually. I haven't actually tried the IV NAD. Have you personally used that yourself?
I have, yeah.
What was your experience like with the IV NAD?
I did a lower dose, like a lot of them out there, 750 to 1,000. So I didn't go that high, but it takes a while. You have to do a really slow drip, and your chest, if you go too fast, can get kind of tight. But the after effects were really strong in that, like what you were saying, it's like this clear, it's almost like you're running on the best gas that your car could ever have. And then also, the colors of the world like seem brighter, like it's like your vision's more clear. And I do a lot for my eyes. My eyes are like a big issue for me. So I actually really love NAD for the vision clarity that I get. So outside of just feeling, I mean, I don't have an issue with energy, but for vision clarity, I really love NAD. And maybe you know the mechanism behind the eye issue of NAD. I don't, outside of the mitochondrial health, but yeah, it was cool, except for if we go too fast, the chest tightness comes in. So they just have to be careful of that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm definitely personally looking forward to getting it myself. I've actually booked myself in for IV vitamin C this afternoon.
Awesome.
I respond really, really well to IV vitamin C, particularly like after COVID and all of the other associated issues there. But yeah, the IV vitamin C, I get a really dramatic energy boost, but it's not immediately after it. It's usually like the next day. Like I'll wake up feeling, first of all, the way I can tell is that I wake up after only like 7 hours of sleep instead of usually it's 7.5 hours sleep. So for me, it's reducing my total sleep time. And I wake up feeling super energetic and just like in a really, really good mood, like really almost, I've tracked it now like about 5 or 6 times, but actually the next day, sometimes I almost feel like hypomanic, like just super euphoric, super high energy, really outgoing, really excited. So yeah, but going back to the NAD, the NMN and all the different types, I did try, what was the form? There was Niagen. I did try Niagen.
Okay.
I actually didn't really notice much from that particular form. That was a couple of years ago. I tried that. I didn't really notice much. I've tried high dose vitamin B3 as a sort of backdoor way to raise NAD levels. Got the massive flushing effect, right. And then I, basically, yeah. Yeah. Have you had that experience yourself as well?
Yeah, passed out from that one. That was fun.
Wow. Yeah. So now I pretty much just save that just before the sauna, like maybe 50 milligrams is enough just before the sauna. But I mean, I'm really excited to see more research in terms of different applications for the NAD boosters. The other one that I think Tony Robbins has just mentioned, I haven't looked into it further, is the MIB626. He mentioned it apparently in his book. I haven't looked into it, but I'd love to learn more on that one.
Yeah, I haven't heard about that. I have to say this is so fun because as a supplement junkie, it's like we get to talk about the things that help us and the things that have not been so helpful. Like you mentioned, the nice niacin flush. But I'm going to circle back to your vitamin C IV because I'm wondering how many grams are you getting? I got 10 grams recently and felt similar to what you were saying. And also, do you know, I didn't look into what form they use. Are they using ascorbic acid or what form of vitamin C is it?
So it's a really good question. They administered 12 grams, so 12,000 milligrams.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the sodium ascorbate. It was sodium ascorbate. And for me, I'm wondering perhaps, like, because I'm always someone who has low sodium levels. Like I've always had an issue retaining salt, and that's just been like a chronic issue. I'm sort of wondering maybe part of the beneficial effect from the vitamin C injection or IV is the sodium portion. Perhaps it's like helping with sodium uptake, like intracellular sodium uptake. But I think for me, like I looked into the research. It's crazy some of the doses they use, particularly for cancer. Like they're using 20 to 30 grams per day, but they're doing it like literally consecutively, like every single day for like 2 weeks. Whereas when I've been getting the vitamin C, it's usually been spaced out between like maybe 2 to 3 weeks apart. And then the other mechanism of action that I was really excited by, and this is, again, I'm not someone who's ever had Epstein-Barr virus or glandular fever or anything like that, but I looked into, like, there was one particular clinical trial where they looked at the antibodies, like the antibodies for Epstein-Barr virus, and the IV vitamin C did such a dramatic, had such a dramatic positive effect on lowering the antibodies that I think after like 10 treatments, the antibody, total antibodies measured in the blood decreased by like 80%. And so I'm wondering, not that I've like, there are many other viruses that people have been affected by that have like lingering, maybe fatigue effects or things like that. So I'm sort of wondering, maybe IV vitamin C can also have antiviral effects against some other stealth pathogens as well.
Yeah, no, I'm so for it, but yet there's so much controversy about it, because it's like you'll hear that ascorbic acid pushes out copper, and as we know, copper is really important. So when I have it done, I'm like, oh, should I take extra copper? But you don't want to overload your copper. So it's like, but at the end of the day, when you look at the research, like you said, with cancer and everything, there is so much research on high dose vitamin C for a plethora of things. So it's like, you can't negate it. There is so much medicinal benefit to it. And so if people can get their hands on like what you're talking about, like a high dose vitamin C, I say, why not? Like just go home and make sure and eat you some liver.
Yeah, for sure. I actually looked into that as well. I was wondering maybe like, so I'm personally also someone who has like high free copper. So I was sort of wondering maybe like, could it be part of the mechanism by which I feel good is it having like a chelating effect on copper? And then I actually asked, it's funny you mentioned Matt Legge at the start, because I actually asked Matt Legge, I'm like, hey, Matt, like, what do you think is the mechanism here? Like, how do you think IV vitamin C is making me feel so damn good the next day? And we both agree that potentially it's affecting, number one, oxytocin. Like vitamin C is a powerful cofactor to increase oxytocin. Number two was also the ability for it to massively increase noradrenaline, because vitamin C is needed as a cofactor for dopa-decarboxylase to convert dopamine into norepinephrine or noradrenaline. So maybe there's like a rebound noradrenaline effect. And then thirdly, I looked at one study that claimed that there was a massive increase in ACTH, so adrenocorticotropin releasing tropin hormone. And what was interesting about that is I've had a few clients that have they've undergone the. Have you personally done this, where it's the dexamethasone suppression test to assess your cortisol at all?
No, I haven't.
It's like a blood, it's a test that assesses cortisol response. It's usually sort of to look at maybe Addison's disease, so like an autoimmune issue of the adrenal glands. But interestingly, some people, and this is noted elsewhere as well, is that some people feel really, really good from ACTH. Like, I know it's a precursor to cortisol, but some people feel really good from that, increasing that hormone. And, both you and I know that chronic levels of cortisol is terrible for health. But for some people, maybe it's having a really powerful acute anti-inflammatory effect. And so like with the IV vitamin C, I'm sort of wondering, like, is it the oxytocin? Is it the noradrenaline? Is it the antiviral effect? Is it the ACTH effect? Like there's so many different mechanisms.
That would make so much sense because the adrenals require vitamin C to make cortisol. So, I mean, it just makes perfect sense why you would feel like if they were low on cortisol and they're taking in the high dose vitamin C. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so much good stuff there. So, since you mentioned oxytocin, I wanted to touch on your favorite peptides because I've got a few of my own favorites, but I wanted to hear what your favorites were.
Yeah, number one for me would be BPC 157. I'm sure at least one of your guests has probably spoken about it, or you've probably spoken about it. I really like this particular peptide for many reasons. Number one is the powerful gut healing effect, restoring tight junctions, and then also the fact that it can be used orally is like highly appealing to a lot of people because I could imagine some people don't want to be injecting these peptides like ipamorelin, CJC 1295. But I think, BPC is amazing because, yes, it's oral. It can work orally for soft tissue injuries. So like if you have maybe like a torn meniscus, maybe like a fracture or anything, I think the benefit of BPC is that it can be used orally with good effects body-wide. It doesn't have to be, locally injected to elicit a healing response.
Yeah, and I love BPC for the gut health too. I mean, our gut naturally makes this peptide, so it's so cool that I had a person that I knew took it, and he had an injury to his chest and shoulder, but yet he had like the best gut he's ever had while he was on it. So yeah, the shoulder got better, but his gut, he was just like amazed, like, oh my, this is really doing something.
Yeah. And also I might add another like benefit to BPC 157 that I spoke about on one of my recent YouTube videos is the effect on sleep and also on the GABA receptor system. What was really interesting was how BPC 157 could, in these rat studies, again, not in human studies, was its ability to prevent tolerance to benzodiazepines and reverse GABA receptor downregulation or GABA receptor abnormalities. So again, we're seeing like a powerful restorative effect on the GABA network. And for those listening in who want to like understand the GABA system, well, first of all, think of GABA as like the anti-anxiety, the relaxing, the sort of puts the brakes on the nervous system. And so by having this like powerful GABA restorative effect, some people have noted like improvements in their sleep quality. And that was the first effect that I noticed, Jodelle, was when I was wearing my Oura ring. I saw that my deep sleep went all the way up to 3 hours and 15 minutes, which was like insane. It was insane for me.
That's awesome. So BPC 157, what else do you love? Do you have any other favorites?
There are some other ones. I mean, there's another one that's similar. It is a peptide, lorazepatide acetate. That's also a really powerful gut healing peptide that unfortunately didn't make it past, I think it was the final phase to act as a drug for celiac disease.
Oh, wow.
Although it did show highly promising effects in terms of reversing gluten-induced intestinal damage. So that particular peptide I still believe that it's effective, even though there was, for some weird reason, it just didn't pass the final phase to make it as actually a drug to market. But there are so many other ones. Like I'm looking forward to trialing and experimenting, but as you can imagine, my experimentation list is so big right now.
I'd love to be
Yeah.
a fly on the wall in your supplement pantry. I mean, I can only imagine what it looks like. It probably looks like mine, but probably even more extensive as yours. So I know you have a couple of other favorites that are dihydroberberine, and I have used that with clients with diabetes, which really good success with that. So you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you brought this one up. So the dihydroberberine is really unique. Again, many people have probably heard of berberine as an alternative to metformin, for example. But there are many drawbacks associated with berberine. Number one is the bioavailability. So it's like a very poor absorption and utilization by the body. So we need to use very high doses of berberine to achieve a blood sugar lowering effect. And secondly, it can also have gastrointestinal distress. So some people can experience major, abdominal issues, cramping, bloating, gas, diarrhea, potentially from high dose berberine. And so this dihydroberberine, DHB, is actually a metabolite of berberine that appears to possess much greater bioavailability compared to berberine. And its blood sugar lowering effect is more powerful than berberine if we're looking at a gram for gram dosage. And then thirdly, we don't have to use as high a dose with DHB. So we're not getting any of the harsh GI related side effects such as bloating, cramping, diarrhea. So it's like 50 to 100 milligrams per day. And ideally, the way I look at it, the best way to sort of deploy DHB would be ideally just before, about 20 minutes before your highest carbohydrate meal of the day, to help shuttle the glucose into the muscle cells.
Oh, yeah, I love that. So if somebody's planning on having more of like a family dinner where they know there's going to be more carbs than normal, maybe a good time to dose that DHB.
For sure, for sure. It's definitely definitely one that I keep in my wallet or my car if I know I'm going out on a Friday or Saturday night, and yeah, and I know I'm going to have some cheap maybe pizzas or ice cream, things like that.
Sure, life has to have its indulgences, right? So I have another favorite, which is Methylene Blue. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on Methylene Blue.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Methylene Blue. I first tried it probably like 5 years ago now. And I actually first heard about it on the podcast Smart Drug Smarts by Jesse Lawler. I don't know if did you ever see that podcast?
I heard it. That's exactly where I first came across it too.
Nice. Yeah. Well, when I was listening to that, I was like, it blew me away in terms of, how it's a unique antioxidant. It's a very selective antioxidant. It's different to all the other ones. And then I decided to I went on PubMed and I'm just like, Methylene Blue brain. And I'm like looking at all the results coming up in terms of suppressing amyloid plaque buildup, reversing scopolamine-induced memory loss, healing the brain post-stroke, potent anti-inflammatory in the brain, improving growth factors in the brain, and then looking at some of the amazing, there were some human studies looking at how it could affect memory and different elements of memory, for example, like spatial memory, verbal memory, episodic memory, things like that. And it just worked across all parameters. Like it just seemed to tick every single box. Like it would just reliably improve cognition. It would reliably heal the brain following injury or trauma. And then I decided to use it myself. And I used it while studying for, I think it was like my physiology or biochemistry exams as part of uni. And yes, I did get a HD, a high distinction across pretty much all my subjects that trimester. And I would say the Methylene Blue definitely helps with that. And in particular, what I noticed when I was using Methylene Blue was I felt like what I was reading and I was trying to memorize, I felt like I could visualize things better when I was like reading text. Like I could, when people say like, can you see it in your mind's eye? I feel like Methylene Blue enhanced that, like the ability to see things like in your head sort of thing.
Oh, wow. And you're just touching on the brain aspect because, man, if they go in PubMed and they type in, antiviral, antimicrobial, antiparasitic, anti-candida, like it's like the list is just endless of Methylene Blue. So, yeah, I'm so glad that's one that you like. Now, as far as like other nootropics, because since it is considered a nootropic, do you have some other favorite brain boosters, if you will?
Yeah, one that I responded really, really well to, and thousands of people have also responded really well to, something known as bromantane.
Yeah.
It's actual. Yeah, did you look into that as well
I've
yourself?
only
Or
because of you. I've looked into it only because of you because I've never heard it until I heard you talk about it. So yeah, I want you to fill the listeners in because this is great.
sure, sure. So bromantane was really exciting because I was actually looking at I was really obsessed with adaptogenic herbs, like all these adaptogenic like compounds like rhodiola rosea, all of the ginsengs. I was really obsessed with like how they could buffer the stress response and how they could be used for like physical performance and athletic performance. And that's when I dived into um, the world's first synthetic adaptogens. They're known as actoprotectors. And bromantane, alongside bemetyl and some other, and adamantane, they acted as what's known as actoprotectors. And so, diving into the mechanism of action, the really exciting point about bromantane was its ability to increase dopamine levels in a very sustainable and long lasting fashion. For example, for the brain to create dopamine, we need the building blocks. So, for example, we need L-phenylalanine, L-tyrosine, and then it goes down the pathway to eventually create dopamine. What was so special about bromantane is that it could increase the enzyme, so it could upregulate the mRNA expression of tyrosine hydroxylase, which is the enzyme that converts tyrosine into L-dopa. And then further to this, it could also upregulate amino acid decarboxylase, so then converting the L-dopa eventually into dopamine. So looking at that from that particular mechanism of action, no downregulation of the dopamine receptors. So it's not acting as a potent dopamine agonist. So we're not going to see any sign of withdrawal. And if you look at the clinical trials where there was like I think there was over 140 participants. They basically looked at what effect would 3 months of bromantane administration have. And they're looking at the withdrawal, if there were any withdrawal effects or tolerance, and there was neither. So there was, and a lot of the participants still noted benefits for many, many weeks after stopping. So for me, I was like, this sounds like an antibiotic to it. Like, you know how it's like you just run a course and then you come out on the other end like upgraded. Like that's how I viewed bromantane. And that's how I responded. Like I don't use it anymore. I don't think I even need it, but bromantane was amazing in that regard.
Well, you got to love a product like that to where you just take one nice big dose and you're all done. So no, that's awesome. And I'm wondering if this could be, since it's a dopamine booster, I'm wondering if this could be a way to get people off of social media so much or off of like electronic devices so much since they get a small dopamine hit from those. So like how do you feel about like a lot of time on devices and are there supplements that we can mitigate some of the EMF dangers that are coming at us with all this device usage and Wi-Fi everywhere?
Yeah, there is one particular seaweed that I really, really like that does appear to have some EMF blocking potential, and that's Eclonia cava.
Hmm.
Not to be confused with like kava, the actual herb kava. It's Eclonia cava. Um, I just did a YouTube video talking about this, so it's all fresh in my head. But Eclonia cava is a powerful, like brown algae seaweed. Um, and there's been over $35 million of research into this particular seaweed in terms of understanding its broader spectrum health applications. And Eclonia cava is unique. It does appear to prevent radiation induced oxidative stress and potentially help the body defend itself against EMFs. So, and the other benefit with Eclonia cava is the extraordinarily long half life because it's highly fat soluble. It can last in the body for the half life is 12 hours. So even many, many hours after that, it's still going to be lingering in your system.
Yeah, I've heard you mention that seaweed before, but I had no idea that it had EMF protective qualities to it. So now I'm going to have to get my hands on that because we live in an EMF laden world. And so I'm all about doing everything I can to live in the modern world, but be less affected by it. So that's good to know. Now, another topic I wanted to bring up with you because I see so much of it in my practice is low testosterone. And I know you have some pretty cool tips and suggestions for low testosterone. So let's go there.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully by the time that this podcast is released, I'll have I've got a free testosterone optimization training.
Oh,
So hopefully I spent so much time like building it and putting it together. But yeah, if your listeners want to like dive into it, we can link it in the show notes. It's going to be like a free training on
yeah.
how men can optimize their testosterone. Pleiotropic effects are, they're unmatched really. But as far as like, I mean, we can go into like potential causes of low testosterone. We can like, where did you want to start with testosterone?
Yeah, briefly just fill them in on like why they're experiencing it. And then there is so much they can do about it naturally too, because I know you've experienced that.
For sure, for sure. So as far as like major, what I call like testosterone blockers, um, looking at the very simple things, for example, like exposure to plastic bottles, like or drinking from a plastic bottle. A lot of these xenoestrogens, even the ones that say like BPA free, for
Mm.
example. I mean, the companies will just use a different. They'll just use a different form of maybe BPA or something
Yes.
like that, and so it's still going to have like a xenoestrogenic effect. Um, and then from like a dietary perspective, I mean, people are selecting the wrong fats. People are consuming the wrong types of fats. And both you and I know the PUFAs, the polyunsaturated fatty acids, are absolutely terrible for not only thyroid health but even testosterone. So we need to be avoiding canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, rapeseed oil. Um, so I guess like from a fat perspective, instead we want to be selecting things like avocados, coconuts, olive oil, macadamias, Brazil nuts. Like these are the pro testosterone, fats. And then I guess like from the carbohydrate perspective, I've never been a fan of very low carbohydrate diets. And from a hormonal perspective, like when I was trying to boost my testosterone as high as I could naturally, and I got it to 988 nanograms per deciliter naturally, just shy of 1,000. I was consuming about 350 to 400 grams of carbs per day.
Mhm.
So there's definitely, there was no holding back with the carbohydrates. Then that was primarily coming from like honey, oats, sourdough bread, lots of berries, and then mostly avoiding like starch, like sweet potatoes, unfortunately, they just didn't make me feel good. So I had to sort of cut them out.
I think you're like the male version of me because everything you said just like resonated so well. See, my testosterone tanked after my mold exposure. And like you, the only thing that would bring it back, I did to improve my thyroid. I went carnivore for 4 months, which totally improved my thyroid, but didn't do anything to my sex hormones. So in order to get those to come up, I really had to dial up the carbohydrates in addition to all the animal proteins I was bringing in with carnivore. So I just called it carnivore with benefits. And I just added in a lot of extra carbs that like the honey and the oats and all of that. So yeah, no, for sure. I love that you were able to get yours up naturally and without going on any sort of hormone replacement, which there's nothing wrong or bad with that, but that for people that don't want to do that, they can get their testosterone up naturally. So are there any cutting edge supplements that people can look into for testosterone?
Yeah, I mean, I was really interested being a naturopath. I was interested in like which herbal extracts could support reproductive capacity in men. And the obvious one that most people know about is tribulus.
Yeah.
But I was just, I don't know, it's sort of like, I looked at it and I'm like, okay, there's some research, maybe like a pro libido effect, but not really helping with testosterone. Then I came across like traditional Chinese medicine and I fell in love with like their approach to like fertility and sperm health and sperm count and everything. And that's when I came across cistanch extract, which is like one of Genghis Khan's favorite herbs. Overall, looking at some of the research on cistanch, like 2.3-fold increase in sperm count, an increase in testosterone, an increase in DHT, upregulating the enzymes that convert cholesterol into pregnenolone and then from pregnenolone downstream. So yeah, I think the cistanch extract is powerful, really, really powerful. Looking at about like half a teaspoon in warm water. And then if you follow that with like, say, eggs and maybe like some bacon or some, high cholesterol foods, maybe even some chicken hearts, like that is, and then icing your balls as a guy, which I've spoken about extensively, is the benefits of icing your testes. Like that combination there is like, it's going to supercharge your energy and testosterone levels without a doubt.
Okay. And then this is one of the questions I wanted just specifically to have you on the podcast for, is because icing testicles is really cool. And I'm glad it works for men, but can women also like use an ice pack down low and expect that their testosterone could be improved by that as well? What do you think?
Wow. That's a really good question. I mean, I'd have to look into maybe like the physiology. Maybe it would affect, if anything, it would affect perhaps like maybe ovulatory cycle or, yeah, I'm not sure. I actually need to look into that further. But as far as like the implications, maybe if there's like inflammation or poor circulation, it can help to bring new blood flow to that region and perhaps like help with energy metabolism in that area. But honestly, like, yeah, I actually don't know.
Yeah, it brings to mind because men have gonads and women have gonads. They're just smaller. So I'm thinking, would it play into the same way?
No, I understand. I think if anything, maybe it might help with like progesterone output. I'm just trying to think like from a physiology. Yeah, maybe there's like a progestogenic effect. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love that. I like us brainstorming together. So maybe we'll get to the bottom of it. Okay, so we'll wrap up here with some sleep suggestions that I know that you are kind of known for. And I really love that you have kind of preached the sleeping on an incline, because I've been doing that for a long time. But then I realized I don't ever recommend this to my clients. Why don't I do that? I do it myself because I've found the benefit in sleeping on an incline, but I never knew there was actual incline bed therapy. And you have talked about that. And when I heard that, I'm like, this is actually a thing. So tell us about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that particular practice was a game changer for me because I used to get like reflux during the night, and that's because I have a hiatus hernia, which I'm choosing not to get it operated on. But yeah, in terms of the incline bed therapy, as far as its mechanism of action, like how it's so beneficial, what we now know is that the brain can detoxify itself. And as part of its brain detox mechanism, it actually undergoes this process through glymphatic drainage. So these lymph nodes can actually filter out waste products in the brain, and in particular, this is one of the reasons why sleep is so important, because it's a place for rejuvenation, recovery, detoxifying, and clearing out waste products from the body. So interestingly, inclined bed therapy can improve lymphatic drainage, and it can reduce pressure in the like actual intracranial pressure. And so by doing this, it can improve general filtration of the brain. And interestingly, you would think that being like sleeping on an incline would lead to like worsened circulation, but actually somehow it has a paradoxical effect where circulation is actually enhanced in the body. We see this with people that have like lower back injuries, for example, or lower back pain, that they wake up feeling just like they don't have as much soreness and stiffness in the body. So yeah, from like a sleep perspective. And then the other benefit there is also the increased frequency of morning wood for men, because the circulation is enhanced. So they're going to be waking up with a morning wood more likely. So yeah, lots of benefits.
Yeah, that's so cool. So that's something that people, maybe they've tried all the latest supplements, but they haven't tried just elevating their bed. So, I mean, that's a really good tip. Now, what about like, are there any supplements that you like outside of like melatonin? Because I know you mentioned one that I heard you talk about in a podcast that's very similar to melatonin.
Yeah, that's probably the agomelatine, which is it is a pharma. Yeah, it is a pharma-based drug. That's also a serotonin 2C antagonist. So that's the reason why I got so obsessed with agomelatine, was because I was looking at compounds that were similar to cyproheptadine.
Oh yeah.
And we could probably dedicate a whole podcast to cyproheptadine, because that drug has been, I mean, I've used it over probably 150 times in my lifetime. But yeah, I was looking at like what else we could do to antagonize serotonin receptors, and agomelatine was a serotonin 2C antagonist. And then I was looking at the downstream effects from there. But the agomelatine is also a melatonin receptor agonist, M1 receptor agonist. And so some of the studies suggest that it can optimize the circadian rhythm. But I think it could be useful maybe post travel. But like in terms of what I'm using now, like for sleep, that seaweed that I mentioned before, the Eclonia cava, the one that helps with EMF, blocking EMFs, that one there has very positive effects on sleep. In fact, there was a study where they compared it to another diazepam, like a benzodiazepine, and it improved sleep time equally, if not better, than this benzodiazepine, by sharing a very similar mechanism of action, without any issues with locomotive behavior and or physical retardation, which you get from benzodiazepines. So definitely, when you get your hands on Eclonia cava, try using it about 60 to 90 minutes before bed, and let me know how you sleep, because I guarantee you'll have a very, very deep sleep.
Okay, well, that's on my list now. Now, do you have that on your website?
Yeah, it should be linked on the site. I was actually in touch with he's the biggest exporter of Eclonia cava in the world right now, and he's like shipping out 25 to 50 kilograms of this seaweed. It's not cheap because it's very difficult to obviously source, but I tried all the other brands. Like none of the other ones really had a potent effect. His one was by far the best.
Awesome. Okay, so now we get to the point where people need to know where they can go to your website and find these great products, because you do have a really good list of everything that you recommend on your website, as well as, tell them about your podcast and your videos.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. So people can search Ergogenic Health, go to my website. There's hundreds of products, things that I've mentioned, for example, today. And if they want to dive deep on like the research and they love hearing about all these quirky and unusual compounds, search Boost Your Biology on YouTube, and please go over there and subscribe to my YouTube channel. My goal is to hit like 50K subscribers by the end of the year. Hopefully I get there. Mm-hmm. And then also check out my podcast, the Boost Your Biology podcast. And also go and follow me on Instagram that's where it all started, was Instagram. So ergogenic_health on Instagram. So yeah.
Well, lucky you haven't been banned by YouTube yet like I have. So, but I'll be back May 17th after my YouTube jail is over. So I'm in YouTube jail right now. But one of the last questions I like to ask more recently, because I have a favorite quote by Audrey Hepburn that is, every day should have at least one exquisite moment. So I think your day is starting right now, but I would love to know what your exquisite moment has been recently.
Wow. For me, the exquisite moment has been to work on releasing my own ingredient to market. Like I've been diving into, this is like up and coming. I haven't mentioned this anywhere on any podcast, but I might as well share it here. Is like launching my own ingredient. That's something I've been working on closely with the world's greatest formulator, Sean Wells. So yeah, that's in the pipeline.
So it's just one ingredient, but it's going to be a supplement. Is that what you're saying? Or you're putting it in a supplement as this newfound ingredient?
It will be like a new ingredient that hasn't been used in any supplements. And then eventually I'm hoping that this particular ingredient will be used in thousands of pre-workouts, thousands of energy supplements.
Oh, how exciting. Okay, so we'll stay tuned for that, because hopefully you'll get to talk about that soon. So, well, Lucas, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And I think this is a part one, because I think I have tons of more supplement questions and ideas I want to run with you and brainstorm with you on. So we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. And I'll have to get you on my podcast as well.
I would be honored. Thank you. Okay, so we'll say bye for now, and you guys check out his podcast, his website, and thank you, Lucas. So a common question I get is, what are some of my favorite supplements that I take daily? Well, here are my faves, just to name a few. I love a good magnesium glycinate for stress and sleep. I love a good multi-mineral to make sure I have all the raw materials for my thyroid and my metabolic processes. I like BCAAs, branched chain amino acids, when I can't get to adequate protein in the midst of a busy day. And I never go a day without my vitamin D3 and K2 drops under my tongue. Supplements can be pricey, and in a perfect world, wouldn't it be nice to have a healthcare practitioner assign your specific supplement needs to you and find the one bio-individual supplement needs that match your body? Well, that's where FullScript comes in, my online supplement dispensary. FullScript is where I can recommend the perfect supplements for you when we consult, but also if we don't consult, you can simply go to my FullScript online dispensary and find all of your
favorite supplements at 15 to 20% off what you would normally pay in the store. So FullScript has lots of my favorite brands like Quicksilver Scientific and Nutrisol and Apex Energetics and so much more. Hundreds more, in fact. Even protein powders, teas, toothpaste, and natural beauty products. Really great brands that I myself love and recommend. So to try my FullScript out for yourself, here's a couple of options. You can, number one, click the link in the description to visit my FullScript page, or you can enter us.fullscript.com/welcome/jfitzwater. Let me say that again. That's us.fullscript, FULLSCRIPT.com/welcome/J as in Jodelle, Fitzwater, FITZWATER. Or if that's too long and lengthy, you can email me at getfitwithjodelle@gmail.com and I can set you up with a free FullScript account where I can help navigate the right supplements for you. So FullScript is discreet with fast shipping that drops right to your doorstep. No more running out to the local natural health food store when time's just not on your side. The world simply does not offer enough raw materials naturally anymore to combat the modern stressors. And that's why finding the right supplements that work can and will help you. Try my FullScript today, save money, and start feeling better. Guys, 5G is here. It's been rolled out all across the nation and unfortunately vastly starting to affect our health. Research shows that these 5G millimeter waves, these small towers everywhere, along with the 4G that's still on the towers, it's to be actually more dangerous to our health than ever before in human history, including DNA damage, cancer, infertility, and even blood sugar issues. So, how can we live in the modern world and not be damaged by modern technology? Well, aside from keeping your device usage to a minimum and keeping your devices as far from you as possible, mosequipment.com is my go-to web store for 5G blocking accessories and home goods that make living in electrosmog pollution with it all around us and makes it safe. From products like their EMF blankets to Faraday blocking duffel bags to beanies that you wear on your head and even fanny packs, this company has created high-quality EMF shielding equipment that can save you and your family from harmful radiation. In fact, let me tell you about one customer. So one client of mine informed me that MOS's EMF shielding beanie kept her from experiencing debilitating headaches that she had been having, most likely due to chronic Bluetooth exposure with her job as a long-haul trucker. If you are ready to make sure that you have your body and your family's body shielded from this dangerous amount of electromagnetic radiation that's all around us, from devices, from Wi-Fi everywhere, Bluetooth everywhere, and 5G, visit mosequipment.com and use my code JODELLE, JODELLE, to save 5% off of their products that can literally save your life.